Spinosaurus aegyptigus, one of the largest theropod dinosaurs to have ever existed. Often compared to the Tyrannosaurus, the Spinosaurus is undoubtedly one of the most famous dinosaurs in the world. But today, I'm posing a question that nobody has ever asked before. Could the Spinosaurus survive in Genshin Impact's Fontaine? Let's not waste any time, and let's get right into it. First off, what exactly is a Spinosaurus? As briefly mentioned, Spinosaurus is a large Spinosaurid dinosaur that lived around 100 to 94 million years ago in northern Africa. It's generally regarded as one of the largest theropod dinosaurs to have ever existed, rivaling other giant predators such as the Tyrannosaurus and Giganotosaurus. Recent estimates for its size put the Spinosaurus at around 14 meters or 46 feet in length, 2.4 meters or around 7.8 feet tall at the hip, and around 7 to 8 metric tons in weight. Spinosaurus was a giant, one of the largest terrestrial carnivores to have ever lived, having unique specializations suited for the time and area it lived in. But would it be able to survive in Fontaine? Described as a terrestrial sea, Fontaine is actually the name of the nation rather than the region. One of several nations in the world of Teyvat, where the events of Genshin Impact take place, there are several regions of Fontaine that we might place our spine lizards into. The Belleau region, the Beryl region, the Court of Fontaine, the Lefay region, the Fontaine Research Institute, the Irenaeus Forest, and the Morta region. Now, which region would be best to slot Spinosaurus into? Well, some sort of region as opposed to wilderness is needed for our situation here, to which I have picked out to be a large mix of the Belleau region, the Beryl region, the Irenaeus Forest, the Lefay region, and the Morta region. While a few parts are somewhat close to populated areas such as the Court of Fontaine, the landscape and wilderness aesthetic make each location a suitable experimental region to place the Spinosaurus into. With our locations chosen to drop our spiny dinosaurs into, I'll be going over 3 important factors to consider whether or not the Spinosaurus could survive its new home. Number 1, adaptability to the environment, 2, dietary habits, and 3, competition. Each factor will be given a score out of 10, culminating in an out of 30 final score. With that all out of the way, let's begin each area of analysis and see if the Spinosaurus could survive Genshin Impact's Fontaine. The environment that Spinosaurus is known to have inhabited comes in the form of 2 geologic formations, the Baharia Formation of Egypt and the Kemkem Beds of Morocco. The large amount of freshwater species of fish found in each environment indicate that Spinosaurus would have thrived in estuary-like habitats. Spinosaurus was suited to the environment it lived in, sporting a large paddle-like tail and dense bones that allowed it to dive and pursue prey underwater. Given the landscape of wetlands, tidal flats, rivers, deltas, and mangrove forests, Spinosaurus was likely semi-aquatic, usually hunting on shorelines, snapping at fish or anything else that it could get its jaws on, alongside hunting underwater. In somewhat of contrast to the Spinosaurus prehistoric habitats, Fontaine has something both similar and different to offer. The Belleau region sports islands and long shorelines, allowing for a Spinosaurus to lay claim to large patches of land. The Beryl region, on the other hand, is a large mountainous region akin to an island in the middle of the terrestrial sea that Fontaine is known for. Akin to the Beryl region also has large shorelines that circle the area, meaning that Spinosaurus would likely find itself setting up in territory in these places as well. It would likely rarely go inland in both regions, as it would have no reason to travel across large stretches of land without any water nearby, given its specialization in a semi-aquatic lifestyle. When it comes to the Irenaeus Forest, however, traveling inland might be an option for some of the Spinosaurs. While also having large shorelines, large lakes can be found in the region, which would likely be well suited for a Spinosaurus. Just like the Belleau and Beryl regions, the Lefay region boasts expansive shorelines, and the Morta region takes the form of several island patches, perfect for a Spinosaurus to claim as their own. The environment Fontaine has to offer isn't entirely perfect, however. For the most part, the temperature would likely be cooler than prehistoric conditions. Not something the Spinosaurus couldn't adapt to, but it is something to note. And outside of the Irenaeus Forest, the landscape is mostly beaches and mountainous areas, different from the mangrove and river delta environments that the Spinosaurus would be used to. The unlimited amount of freshwater from Fontaine's terrestrial sea would be helpful though, and given the sheer volume, mixed with Spinosaurus' semi-aquatic nature, would still make it a good fit for Spinosaurus to thrive in. I would give the Spinosaurus a 7.5 out of 10 score for adaptability to the environment. Given its semi-aquatic nature, Spinosaurus' diet mostly consisted of fish, though it likely preyed on other animals as well. The types of fish that would have been likely a part of Spinosaurus' diet would be things such as the giant sea acanth Lawsonia, the lunged fish Neoceratodus, and the saucegate Onchopristis. Fish wasn't the only thing it would have been eating though. Other creatures the Spinosaurus lived alongside, such as sharks, crocodilomorphs, turtles, pterosaurs, and other smaller dinosaurs were likely on the menu. Sharks such as the Squalocorax could have been eaten, and reptiles such as turtles, marine snakes, and even small plesiosaurs could have also been prey for the Spinosaurus. It's also highly likely that the Spinosaurus was an opportunistic feeder, scavenging whenever it had the chance along the shoreline. When it comes to potential food sources that the Spinosaurus could prey on in Fontaine, there's certainly no shortage of potential meals for the spine lizard. Fish are abundant and plentiful, allowing the Spinosaurus to feast on however many fish it wanted to. Outside of fish, Fontaine contains several varieties of what are known as Fontimer aberrants, which are creatures similar to real-life animals. Coming in many shapes and sizes, Spinosaurus would have ready access to creatures such as the angelic sea hares, armored crabs, ball octopuses, blubber beasts, bubbly seahorses, hat jellyfish, and hunter's rays. Most aberrants are not much larger or usually much smaller than a normal human, making them easy prey for a hungry Spinosaurus. Larger and more aggressive Fontimer aberrants, such as the bubbler seahorse, the cherubic sea hare, and the stern-keeled crab, could pose slightly more of a challenge to juvenile Spinosaurus specimens, though a fully grown adult Spinosaurus would have no trouble devouring them. Other wildlife and animals, such as crocodiles, otters, boars, and aquatic birds, would also likely be preyed on. Given the biodiversity offered in Fontaine's waters, Spinosaurus would have quite a selection of prey to choose from. Overall, the Spinosaurus would likely have no trouble with finding prey. Besides the simple ease of catching fish and hunting underwater, a single blubber beast resting on the shore would be an easy meal for an adult Spinosaurus, while the small juvenile blubber beasts and smaller Fontimer aberrants could be similarly eaten by a young Spinosaurus. Juvenile Spinosaurus could also likely eat smaller fish, small crabs, and frogs that lurk around shorelines, equaling a fairly easy time across the board when it comes to diet. I would give the Spinosaurus a 9.5 out of 10 score for dietary habits. Despite carving out its own niche within its prehistoric environment, Spinosaurus still faced competition from time to time. The main sources of competition that the Spinosaurus would face came from crocodiles large enough to pose a threat, such as the Neosuchians Elosuchus and Stomatosuchus. These two crocodilians would have been piscivores, which the Spinosaurus would have fought with for food. On the other hand, Spinosaurus would have rarely came into conflict with other dinosaurs it lived with. Giant sauropods like Aralotitan or Egyptosaurus would have been practically impossible to take down due to the Spinosaurus' unique adaptations, and as such, there was also no need to compete against other large carnivores present like Carcharodontosaurus or Tamaroraptor. While no giant predators of similar caliber to the Spinosaurus exist within Fontaine, the main source of competition for the Spinosaurus would likely come from hostile third parties. Genshin Impact's enemies and elite enemies could pose a threat to Spinosaurus, though their locations and population density play a large part in determining their threat level. The bizarre breacher premises, alongside the tainted hydrophantasms, would be completely strange and otherworldly to the Spinosaurus. Such bizarre lackings would be likely ignored by the Spinosaurus, as blindly rushing into an unknown threat wouldn't cross a dinosaur's mind. Juveniles might approach out of curiosity, but upon concluding that neither can be eaten, the Spinosaur would likely retreat. In a similar vein, machines such as the Clockwork Mecha and the Rune machines would also be unlike anything that the Spinosaurus has ever seen before. It's more than likely that the Spinosaurus would avoid these types of beings, and whether or not the Spinosaurus would be perceived as a threat to any of them is highly dubious. On occasion, a Spinosaurus might run into an elemental being such as a slime or water flower. Both would pose little to no threat to even a juvenile Spinosaurus, but neither could be considered prey items. While normal hilichurls would be of no concern and possibly could be eaten, the larger Laochurls could possibly pose a threat to the Spinosaurus. However, given their more inland locations, run-ins between the two would be exceedingly rare. Consecrated beasts, despite being much smaller than the Spinosaurus, would likely pose a threat in the form of competition. The bird-like consecrated red vulture would be the lesser competitor of the two found in Fontaine, given its rarity and more inland location. The consecrated horned crocodile, on the other hand, would act much in the same vein as the Neosuchians that Spinosaurus had to compete with in its ancient environment. Territorial disputes would likely occur, but given the rarity of the consecrated beasts, Spinosaurs would have a much larger foothold when it came to territory. The horned crocodile could even become a possible prey option if conflict were to ensue. Arguably one of the strangest possible threats to Spinosaurus would be humans. While treasure hoarders would be eaten alive, Fatui operatives could potentially pose a threat to the Spinosaurus with their elemental prowess and weaponry. If a large number of Fatui agents surrounded and ganged up on an adult Spinosaurus, it is possible that they could bring it down. However, individually, they would stand little to no chance at defeating a Spinosaurus. If anything, the Spinosaurus' sheer presence would be able to drive humans out of its newly set up territory. Overall, given the wide-ranging, strange enemies that are present within Genshin Impact, the Spinosaurus could be dealing with some potentially tough competition. However, the location of potential threats, the scarcity of some foes, and the overall self-preservation mindset that a Spinosaurus would have, would equate to battles happening very rarely. At most, territorial disputes could occur with some enemies, but even then it would be uncommon. I would give the Spinosaurus an 8 out of 10 score for competition. So, what would happen if populations of Spinosaurus were dropped into Fontaine? They would probably establish territory rather quickly, which would be on the shores of each region, as well as alongside the 2 lakes found in the Irenaeus Forest. Finding prey would be of no issue, given the abundant resources that Fontaine has to offer. While competition in the form of possible threats would be a potential issue, none would be able to challenge the Spinosaurus' new hold over the beaches and shorelines. Overall, Spinosaurus receives an ultimate 25 out of 30 score. While a few problems would hinder the immediate adaptability of the Spinosaurus, it would be more than able to handle them due to their large amount of prey items and readily available water sources. Ultimately, Spinosaurus would be able to carve its own niche out within the wider realm of Teyvat. It would be the undisputed apex predator of Fontaine, and in a somewhat bizarre twist, would offer upsides to the human population. By its very presence in the wilderness of Fontaine, nefarious human activity by treasure hoarders and the Fatui would significantly reduce, especially if bases of operation and encampments were made in Spinosaurus territory. With less of a sinister foothold from both organizations, those within the populated areas of Fontaine would have one less thing to worry about. In conclusion, would Spinosaurus be able to survive in Genshin Impact's Fontaine? The answer is a definitive yes. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and if you have a scenario in mind you'd like to see covered, comment down below so you can let me know. Thank you for watching.